Rain fell in thick sheets over the cracked and lifeless plains of Ecaris. 9. A once thriving colony world now reduced to rubble after decades of war. The sky hung in heavy blues and grays, choked by smoke from distant plasma detonations. Amid the ruins, a scavenger walked alone, a human, tall and broad-shouldered, wrapped in a weather-worn cloak and boots caked with red mud. His name was Reed Carter, a war veteran turned wanderer. Reed didn't expect to find anything of value in the outer districts. The last broadcast claimed it was overrun by slavers 2 years ago. But his gut told him to keep going, past the fallen towers and rusted transport hubs, down into the heart of what once was a vibrant alien marketplace. The smell of ozone lingered in the air when he heard it. A faint sob. He froze, slowly turning toward the collapsed shell of an old shipping depot. Part of the roof had caved in, exposing steel cages that had been stacked like animal pens. Something moved, something small. Reed stepped closer, boots crunching debris. Inside the nearest cage sat 2 figures. One was a girl, no older than 6, her thin arms wrapped around her knees. Her silver blonde hair was knotted and dirty, eyes glowing faintly violet in the dim light. Next to her sat a woman, older, maybe mid-20s, with the same pale features and pointed ears, though hers bore tattoos of her clan etched into her skin with dark ink. The little girl looked up as he approached. No fear, just hope. "Can I have a dad now, please?" she whispered, voice raspy and cracked. "You look like the pictures Mama showed me." Reed blinked, stunned to silence. The wind howled between them. The woman beside her stirred, pulling the child closer. "Don't talk to strangers, Elia," she murmured weakly, her voice filled with fatigue and pain. But Reed had already dropped to one knee, resting a hand on the rusty bars. "You're not from the inner colonies, are you?" "We were taken during the Harvest War," the woman said. "They call me Sorry. This is my daughter. We're the last of our enclave. The slavers kept us because our blood cells high, but no one's come in weeks." Reed studied the makeshift lock, an old pull seal with corroded circuits. He dug into his belt, pulling a plasma cutter from his satchel. "You're not with them?" Sorry asked, narrowing her eyes. "No," he said, igniting the cutter. "I kill men like them." It took less than a minute to cut through the cage. When the door fell open, Elia didn't hesitate. She rushed forward and threw her arms around Reed's waist. He tensed. He hadn't been hugged in years. "Thank you," she whispered. Sorry followed slowly, limping. Her arm was bruised, her ankle twisted. Reed moved to support her. "There's a medkit in my crawler. It's not far." As they made their way back through the ruins, Elia held Reed's hand, eyes bright with cautious joy. "Did you really fight in the war?" "Yeah," he said, not proud of it. "Were you good?" "I did what I had to. That's what Mama says too." At the crawler, Reed cleaned and wrapped Sari's ankle, then gave them both food from his ration pack. They ate slowly, like they didn't trust it wasn't poisoned. "You're human," Sari finally said. "Why help us?" Reed sat across from them, sighing. "Because when the world burns, someone has to remember what kindness looks like." Sari looked away, her eyes glistening. "We don't know where to go." "Then come with me." She stared at him. "You'd let 2 aliens travel with you? You know what that makes you in the inner systems." "I don't care what they think. The inner systems didn't bleed for this planet. I did." Over the next week, they traveled across the scorched landscape. Reed taught Elia how to track footprints, how to distinguish safe food from toxins, and even how to start a fire in the rain. She soaked in everything with wild-eyed wonder. Sari, still healing, grew quieter but visibly stronger. Reed caught her watching him often, wary, unsure. But her walls began to crack when Elia began calling him, Dad. Without hesitation. One night, around a fire made from dried shrubwood, Sari pulled him aside. She's starting to believe, she said, arms folded. I know. She's going to be crushed if you leave. I'm not planning on leaving. Sari narrowed her eyes. You really mean to keep us around? Reed met her gaze. I didn't free you for some temporary good deed. I saw a girl in a cage who reminded me of my sister, and a mother doing everything she could to protect her child. Sari looked down. We lost everything, you know. My mate, my people, our future. But Elia still smiles. She believes in a world where someone like you would save us just because it's right. Reed gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Then maybe we can help her build that world. Trouble came sooner than expected. They were camped by a cliffside when a convoy of slaver bikes appeared on the horizon, 6 in total, armed and fast. Reed cursed. They must have tracked my plasma cutter signal. He rushed Elia and Sari into the crawler. Hide in the lower bay. Don't make a sound. What about you? Sari asked, panic in her voice. I'll buy you time. Reed stood his ground as the slavers rolled in. The leader, a brute with cybernetic eyes and jagged teeth, dismounted and laughed. Well, well. Carter the butcher. Didn't know you were babysitting now. Reed said nothing. His hand hovered over the blaster at his hip. You took our property, the brute said, stepping forward. Give them back, and we might just let you live. Reed smiled grimly. Come and take them. The fight was brutal. Reed was fast, efficient, a soldier forged in hell. He dropped 3 before they reached him. A shot grazed his side, another shattered his shoulder plate. But he didn't stop. The slaver leader tackled him, fists slamming down, until, bang! A single plasma bolt pierced the brute's skull. He collapsed. Behind him stood Sari, holding Reed's sidearm, hands shaking. I told you to stay hidden, Reed rasped. You needed help. Together, they drove off the last 2 slavers. After the battle, Reed slumped against the crawler, blood seeping from his wounds. Elia knelt beside him, her tiny hands pressed to his. You can't die, she whispered, trembling. You're my dad now. Reed coughed a laugh, eyes blurry with pain. I'm not going anywhere, starling. Sari knelt next to him, tearing strips from her cloak to stop the bleeding. You're insane, she murmured. But you're our kind of insane. In the silence that followed, the stars broke through the stormy skies above. Weeks passed. They traveled further from the war zones, deeper into the green valleys of the northern plateau, untouched by conflict. There, in the shade of towering violet trees, Reed began to build a new home from the wreckage of old-world tech. Sari planted seeds. Elia collected stones and named bugs. Reed carved wooden beams and taught them both how to defend themselves. He never asked for anything in return. One evening, as the 3 of them watched the twin moons rise over the hill, Sari turned to him. You know, you never asked what Elia meant when she said you looked like the pictures I showed her. Reed raised a brow. What did she mean? Sari smiled faintly. Back in her enclave before the war, I told her stories of a man who stood between monsters and children, who didn't care about species or bloodlines, just right and wrong. She called him the Starfather. Reed looked out at the moons, expression unreadable. That's a heavy title.